Okay, so as I'm finishing up this soda can, as you can see, I already laid down a lot of the mid-range and really deep, rich shadows that are on this can. And because it's metal, those shadows are reflecting in a really dynamic way that's a little bit different than the other forms that I've drawn. And so just to reiterate, here's some of the tools that I have. I have my vine charcoal, and I've started using a soft or medium vine charcoal. Let me just show you really quickly what that looks like when I'm laying down tone. It's really fast. This looks like it might still be my sticker charcoal, actually. Okay, so that might have, I think that was the hard charcoal, so here's medium. So look at how quickly, look at how easy it is to lay that down. So it's a huge, huge difference between the two. You see? So make sure that you're working with a soft or a medium charcoal, or a soft or a medium vine charcoal. I also have my compressed charcoal, as you can see. I have my art gum eraser, which has fallen into a couple pieces, but these little edges are gonna end up being really fun to work with. These little crisp edges will really help me erase and get really crisp lines for my final can. And then I also have my charcoal pencil, and I have gone ahead and sharpened these. You can use just a regular pencil sharpener. Just be careful because the compressed charcoal is going to be a little bit more sensitive and vulnerable than your graphite in your regular graphite pencils. So be careful about that as you are sharpening those pencils. Last but not least, I do want to just point out I have my kneaded eraser. And for those of you that are curious, here's how you use a kneaded eraser. When you are, erasing, you're going to then go ahead and actually knead it. So hence it's called a kneaded eraser. And what that does is it physically absorbs what you've erased and it gives you new, fresh eraser to use in your drawing. And so then you can really model it and knead it to be whatever shape you want it to be. Remember, artists of yore, back in the day, would have used bread for their eraser to remove charcoal. And so this is just a modern version of that same innovation. And so we can really knead this eraser, model it to get the shape that we need. You can even pinch it to get a really narrow, thin little edge that you can then use to go in there and get a really crisp, fine little detail. As I'm working on this, I'm probably gonna do that up here to get that little really crisp reflection of metal. And so let's go ahead and work. I'm just gonna work for a little bit. I'm not gonna say anything, and then I'll stop and point out things that I'm doing as needed. So one of the things that I just did now is I was working with both my kneaded eraser and my art gum eraser to clean up this bottom here. And I'm gonna spend a little more time on that on this side. But I'm gonna shift gears a little bit up here as well. So I'm gonna kind of juggle between the two, and then I'll resolve the middle of the can as needed once I'm done. And up here, what I'm doing is I'm really, I'm resolving different shapes, different forms, and then I'm gonna go back in with that eraser to begin to clarify areas of more substantial highlight. So removing some of that charcoal to create the different highlights, which is especially dynamic because this metal can is, has so much going on in the way of the highlights. So really kind of taking advantage of what the charcoal can do well. Oops, I dropped my eraser. And every time that I want to, pick up a little charcoal and then get rid of it, I'm just kneading it again to create a new little edge that I can then use to go in there and really boop, pick that up and create a little highlight. would highly recommend doing a soda can for your sixth object. If you're already kind of leaning towards that, I would just go for it. Because it's a great challenge and it helps you begin to really pay attention to light on a surface that's really, really different than the other surfaces that we've drawn so far. There's a lot of charcoal on this little area here, so I'm going to need to, knead this charcoal multiple times to take all of that away to really give me the right amount of eraser that I need to create that little highlight right there. So there's that. And I'm going to carry that highlight all the way across here. And then pick up some of this charcoal along here to soften this value spectrum, get it a little bit softer over here. Now, I don't want you to worry for whatever you do end up deciding to draw. I don't want you to worry about doing any logo on it. Just focus more on volume and focus more on, clarifying those subtle details in the work. And then just to finish this up, I'll just kind of really subtly go in there and blend this shadow. My shadow happens to be a little more on the diffused end of things, except for right down here towards the bottom. It gets a little bit richer and darker. And then working through, making sure that you're including this really crisp line at the bottom here. Usually you will have, one of the darkest moments in your drawing will inevitably usually be this little spot here where your object is sitting on a surface. And so you'll notice that I've really kind of blended and toned down some of these lines and transitions, but then I'm keeping that line nice and sharp because I really want the viewer to understand that moment where it happens. I don't want to touch my drawing with my hand, so I'm using my other hand to sort of prop myself up while I, resolve this area visually. Add a little bit more darkness to that little corner there. All right. We're pretty happy with how that looks. All right. Let me know if you have any questions as you are working on your work, and I look forward to seeing what you make.